We will continue with the Christmas story. Today's story is called If You're Missing Baby Jesus. About a week before Christmas, a family bought a new nativity scene. When they unpacked it, they found two figures of the baby Jesus. Someone must have packed this wrong, the mother said. Counting out the figures, we have one Joseph, one Mary, three wise men, three shepherds, two lambs, a donkey, a cow, an angel, and two babies. Oh dear. I suppose some sat down at the store is missing a baby Jesus because we have two. You two run back down to the store and tell the manager that we have an extra Jesus. Tell him to put a sign on the remaining boxes saying that if a set is missing a baby Jesus, call 7126. Put on your warm coats, it's freezing cold out there. The manager of the store copied down Mother's message. And the next time they were in the store, they saw the cardboard sign that read, "If you're missing baby Jesus, call 7126. All week long they waited for someone to call. Surely, they thought, someone was missing that important figurine. Each time the phone rang, Mother would say, "I'll bet that's about Jesus," but it never was. Father tried to explain there are thousands of these scattered over the country and the figurine could be missing from a set in Florida, Texas, or California. Those packing mistakes happen all the time. He suggested just put the extra Jesus back in the box and forget about it. Put baby Jesus back in the box. What a terrible thing to do, said the children. Surely someone will call, Mother said. We'll just keep the two of them together in the manger until someone calls. When no call had come by 5:00 on Christmas Eve, Mother insisted that Father just run down to the store to see if there were any sets left. You can see them right through the window over on the counter, she said. If they are all gone, I'll know someone is bound to call tonight. Run down to the store. Father thundered. It's 15 below zero out there. Oh, Daddy, we'll go with you. Tommy and Mary began to put on their coats. Father gave a long sigh and headed for the front closet. I can't believe I'm doing this, he muttered. Tommy and Mary ran ahead as Father reluctantly walked out in the cold. Mary got to the store first and pressed her nose up to the store window. They're all gone, Daddy, she shouted. Every set must be sold. Hooray, Tommy said. The mystery will now be solved tonight. Father heard the news still a half block away and immediately turned on his heel and headed back home. When they got back into the house, they noticed that Mother was gone. And so was the extra baby Jesus figurine. Someone must have called, and she went out to deliver the figurine. My father reasoned, pulling off his boots. You kids get ready for bed while I wrap Mother's present. Then the phone rang. Father yelled, answer the phone and tell them we found a home for the baby Jesus. But it was Mother calling with instructions for us to come to 205 Chestnut Street immediately and bring 3 blankets, a box of cookies and some milk. Now what has she gotten us into? My father groaned as we bundled up again. 205 Chestnut. Why, that's across town. Wrap that milk up good in the blankets or it will turn to ice before we get there. Why can't we all just get on with Christmas? It's probably 20 below out there now, and the wind is picking up. Of all the crazy things to do on a night like this. When they got to the house at 205 Chestnut Street, it was the darkest one on the block. Only one tiny light burned in the living room. And the moment we set foot on the porch steps, my mother opened the door and shouted, "They're here." Oh, thank God you got here, Ray. You kids take those blankets into the living room and wrap up the little ones on the couch. I'll take the milk and cookies. Would you mind telling me what is going on? My father asked. We have just walked through below zero weather with the wind in our faces all the way. Never mind all that now, my mother interrupted. There isn't any heat in this house and this young mother is so upset she doesn't know what to do. Her husband walked out on her. And those poor little children will have a very bleak Christmas, so don't you complain. I told her you could fix that oil furnace in a jiffy. My mother strode off to the kitchen to warm the milk while my brother and I wrapped up the 5 little children who were huddled together on the couch. The children's mother explained to my father that her husband had run off, taking bedding, clothing, and almost every piece of furniture, but she had been doing all right until the furnace broke down. I've been doing washing and ironing for people and cleaning the 5 and dime, she said. I saw your number every day there. on those boxes on the counter. When the furnace went out, that number kept going through my mind. 7,162. 7,162. Said on the box that if a person was missing Jesus, they should call you. That's how I knew you were good Christian people, willing to help folks. I figured that maybe you would help me too. So I stopped at the grocery store tonight and I called you Mrs. I'm not missing Jesus, mister, because I sure love the Lord. But I'm missing heat. I have no money to fix that furnace. Okay, said Father. You've come to the right place. Now let's see. You've got a little oil burner over there in the dining room. Shouldn't be too hard to fix. Probably just a clogged flue. I'll look it over, see what it needs. Mother came into the living room carrying a plate of cookies and warm milk. As she set the cups down on the coffee table, I noticed the figure of baby Jesus lying in the center of the table. It was the only sign of Christmas in the house. The children stared wide-eyed with wonder at the plate of cookies my mother set before them. Father finally got the oil burner working but said, "You need more oil." "I'll make a few calls tonight and get some oil." "Yes, sir, you came to the right place," Father grinned. On the way home, Father did not complain about the cold weather and had barely set foot inside the door when he was on the phone. He said, "Hey, how are ya?" "Yes, Merry Christmas to you too." "Say, Ed, we have kind of an unusual situation here. I know you've got that pickup truck. Do you still have some oil in that barrel on your truck?" "You do?" By this time, the rest of the family were pulling clothes out of their closets and toys off of their shelves. It was long after their bedtime when they were wrapping gifts. The pickup came. On it were chairs, 3 lamps, blankets, and gifts. Even though it was 30 below, Father let them ride along in the back of the truck. No one ever did call about the missing figure in the nativity set, but as I grow older, I realized that it wasn't a packing mistake at all. Jesus saves, that's what he does. God would bless you. We will continue with the Christmas story. Today's story is called Issachar, the Innkeeper. Long ago, Issachar, an innkeeper in Bethlehem, found it necessary to travel to the city of Jerusalem on business for his inn. Upon his arrival there, he discovered the city was in a tremendous uproar. There was much talk, much excitement. Everyone was hurrying about. Issachar inquired what was happening and was told that the Romans were crucifying 3 men. The one about whom most talk was being made was named Jesus. He was a different sort of man. He had been going about the countryside teaching and preaching, and he had many followers. It was said that he healed people too. Others were saying that he was the promised Messiah, long promised to redeem all. Issachar finished his business for the day. Having a few more hours of daylight, he went to the hill called Golgotha. He was interested to see why all the people were so excited and wanted especially to see this man whose name was Jesus. And there on the hill were 3 men on 3 crosses being crucified by the Romans. The man in the center was Jesus, they said, but strangely there were no curses on his lips. He did not seem angry or resentful toward those who were killing him. He was rather quiet, but when he said anything, it appeared to be more like a prayer than talking. It was such a strange sight. There were a small group of people about the foot of the cross of Jesus, and Issachar asked who they were. Someone said that one of the women was his mother, and her name was Mary. There was something about this Mary that caught Issachar's attention. Maybe her eyes. She seemed familiar to him in a remote sort of way. Issachar turned to one of his side and said, "Tell me more about this man in the center cross." The bystander said his name was Jesus, and that he was from Nazareth. But he was born in Bethlehem. "Bethlehem?" questioned Issachar. "Yes, Bethlehem," came the reply. "When was he born, do you know?" Issachar asked. Said the bystander, "It was during the enrollment of Caesar Augustus, and that would make him 32 or 30 years old." Suddenly Issachar did remember why this Mary woman looked familiar to him. For this woman came to his inn one night these many years ago, she and her husband. She was so tired looking and weary of traveling. Yet her eyes were filled of love, even when he said he had no room. His inn was filled with people who had come to Bethlehem for the enrollment. He did the best he could when he saw May was heavy with child. He told them they could have the stable, and they went there. He had heard a boy child had been born to Mary that night. He remembered that some shepherds came to the stable. He thought they were relatives. Some of his guests at the inn said there was beautiful singing in the stable that night. Issachar stayed at Golgotha longer than he had planned, and the sun was already low in the sky as he returned to the city to take his lodging for the night. But Issachar could not sleep. The thought kept coming to him over and over. They had knocked at his door. He had not let them in. The next morning found Issachar in the temple, praying for forgiveness for his being too busy. And a peace came to him as he determined to be the most considerate innkeeper in Bethlehem from then on. The third morning Issachar awoke early, for he was eager to be on his way home to tell his family what he had seen. He was about ready to set out for home when he heard the news. It was whispered news. It was spreading with lightning speed. This man Jesus was no longer dead. He was alive. Issachar couldn't believe it. It didn't seem possible, for he had seen him hanging on the cross just 2 days before, and yet that is what they said. It was reported that some of his friends went out very early in the morning, about the break of day, and when they came into the garden to the tomb, they found the stone had been rolled away. They said 2 angels were there. The angels told them he was alive. He had risen from the dead as he said he would. They had hurried back to the city. Then 2 of his followers, Peter and John, ran all the way to the garden to see. And it was true. He had arisen, and they saw him. He was alive. It was true. He is risen. He is risen. He is alive. Issachar took the good news back to Bethlehem to his family and friends at the inn. Issachar felt he must add something else to the good. There's something else I must tell you. I did not let him in when he came to my inn. I did not know he was coming. If only someone had told me Joseph and Mary were coming to Bethlehem, that here the Christ child would be born, that angels would announce his coming. But I did not know, and yet this is always the way it is. We never know when the great possibilities of God stand at our own door. We see only a stranger, and we say, "There's no room for you," or "I'm too busy." Pray that he will come to you.